Welcome to the Mark David Show, where the truth is a conspiracy. We got a huge show for you today. What's going on? Oh, I don't know. Just a little bit of major news coming out of Greece. Debt default again. What's going on in Greece debt default? Well, same thing I've been talking about a long time, only this time reporting out of Breitbart, and as I will also discuss from ZeroHedge.com today, investors in Greek bonds are looking up to a 70% haircut. What the heck does that mean? Well, think about what it meant last time. You've heard of MF Global by now. If you've been listening to the Mark David Show, you've heard of MF Global by now. MF Global, not only last time that bondholders for Greek bonds took a quote-unquote haircut, which means debt forgiveness, which means they weren't going to get paid. The last time, MF Global collapsed, went into private accounts and stole the money, them and JP Morgan, and MF Global went down and tens of thousands of farmers lost their savings. So this is huge news. This time, investors in Greek bonds are looking at a potentially up to a 70% haircut, which means up to 70% of the money owed to those people holding those bonds is not going to be paid out to them. And who are those people? Well, a lot of them are actually the big banks. So there's a lot of speculation. Who is next? Who's next in line to end up on the chopping block? Are we going to have another MF Global? Is it going to be bigger than MF Global? Or are we talking maybe a Credit Suisse? Are we talking about? Certainly, we're not going to talk about Goldman Sachs or JP Morgan. I'm sure that they'll get their money, but it's just really interesting stuff going on right now with this. And again, I'm gonna summarize this. I know this drives everybody crazy that stuff gets repeated over and over, but it's really not being talked about at all in the mainstream news, so I have to talk about it, okay? These banks are so intertwined globally. And again, hedge funds are invested in the large banks. So if hedge funds go down, banks start going down. If certain hedge funds and a multiple number of hedge funds, banks start going down in Europe, they start going down in the United States, and so on and so forth. So Greek defaulting is a huge, huge, huge thing. This is not a minor thing, because even if the IMF gets its way, it's the International Monetary Fund, even if they get their way and they're able to issue more cash out of thin air, even if that happens, you still might have an MF Global level banking collapse. And again, farmers, teachers, whoever, you don't know whose pensions are locked in. You don't know who all's going to get this haircut. Again, in a little while, we're going to go over Zero Hedge headlines, and we're going to see what Zero Hedge has to say about Greek defaulting and other financial news. We're also going to talk a little bit about some strange news going around the country, around the world, around the Northwest. So again, welcome to the Mark David Show. We're going to go to a quick music break, and we're going to be right back with more exciting, important news. All right, welcome back to the Mark David Show, where the truth is a conspiracy. Of course, that was the Sopranos soundtrack from the, I think it's the Alabama 3. So anyway, what do we talk about on the Mark David Show today? We are talking largely about the big news right now, which is Greece. And Greece has been talked about so much over so much time that I'm thinking that a lot of people don't quite understand the importance of, what it is we're looking at here. But with Greece, we're looking at a chain reaction that, again, is it the reason why, troops are being sent all over the United States? Maybe not. Is it the reason why, countries like, say, Britain just over the last couple months talked about that their military and police are getting ready for an all-out collapse? Maybe not. Maybe maybe they're not related at all. One can kind of assume. But, short of going all crazy, let's get into some Zero Hedge headlines. And I'm just going to go over the headlines, and I'll stop briefly and talk. ZeroHedge.com, of course, is the blog. It's a financial blog. It's a very important predictor The author is Tyler Durden. Of course, Tyler Durden was the main character in Fight Club. And Tyler Durden on ZeroHedge.com is actually multiple characters. They've predicted some wicked stuff. It's just like in the footnotes of any important document. The footnotes of Zero Hedge are the user comments. You can learn so much. And more and more people are actually turning on to not just this, I think things are going to get bad. They're trying to understand, okay, why? Why did this happen? Well, you can find out a lot just simply in the issuing of bonds. You know, and the fact that the interest rates are being squashed down, because interest rates being squashed down, what does that do? It creates bubbles. It creates the false premise that you have a healthy growing economy, that you can continue borrowing on a healthy level. Greece is not anywhere near a healthy level. In fact, I'm going to go back to this Breitbart.com article about Greece. And basically, it talks about how Greece basically has till March. Okay, so here's the important paragraph. And I've talked about this on the Mark David Show many times, is that in all mainstream news, it's like reading a legal brief. It goes on and blowhard and on and blowhard and on. But there's always like little quips in there that are what are used as like the new precedent. And so here is a little quip in this article. It says, many investors, banks, insurance companies, and hedge funds who hold Greek bonds also hold debt from other countries that use the euro, which could lose value if there's a fully fledged Greek default. And that's what we were talking about just before the break. This is the scenario the Eurozone fears most, and why the currency union hopes investors will voluntarily accept a partial loss on their Greek bonds. And again, don't believe that. It's not just those investors. It is the entire global economy. I'm going to read that first sentence. Many investors, banks, insurance companies, and hedge funds who hold the Greek bonds. Oh, okay. How about pension funds that are in those particular hedge funds? Again, these are so intertwined. And these hedge funds. Okay, I'm going to reiterate this. I know this is a lot of people's lunch hour. They don't want to think about this. They want to digest their food. Digest this. Hedge funds are invested heavily. The top of their investments are your large corporations like Apple, Microsoft, whatever, GE. They're also heavily invested in banks. So if the hedge funds start defaulting if they start saying, okay, we just lost our investment in Greek bonds, they start going down, the stock price of all these major banks go down too. Do you understand this, okay? This is the domino. This is the storm. Okay, I'm going to read the next paragraph in this Breitbart, okay? The agreement taking shape is a key step before Greece can get a second euro 130 billion bailout. The country has been surviving since May 2010 on an initial euro 110 billion. That's $144.21 billion. Package of rescue loans from other countries using euro and the International Monetary Fund. So this thing with Greece, it's not going to be fixed. This is going to happen. Okay? This is going to happen. So many people understand this now. They're buying food stores, they're buying guns. They get it. They understand this. Greece is a major domino to watch, okay? So that's why this is major news right now. People really should be paying attention to this. Okay, moving on. Back to Zero Hedge headlines. Top of the hour. Labor unions demand escalation of trade war with China. They ask Obama to restrict Chinese auto part imports. Okay? And this, I've talked a lot about the currency war. Jim Rickards' book, Currency War. Big time currency war with China right now. Jim Rickards just did an awesome interview. I talked about this last week on the show. Jim Rickards, author of Currency War. He's also one of the managing partners at Tangent Capital. And he's a really important person to listen to right now, because a lot of the things he's been saying for a long time are really starting to escalate. And I'll talk a minute about gold and what he said about gold in a minute, but I'm going to talk real fast. His most recent article, I'm going to refer to a lot, or his interview with King World News. And he says, the Federal Reserve has been actively pushing the price of the dollar down. It is a trade war with other countries to push the value of that dollar down. And a very simple way to do that is to print money. And how do you keep inflation out of the United States? You export it into other countries. And then those countries have revolts because their food prices go up. We have been seeing that. Jim Rickards is right. Another way Jim Rickards says you push the value of the US dollar down is by increasing the value of gold. Again, and so this is creating a situation where you cause sanctions on Iran, for instance. So Iran is doing gold deals with India for oil. And remember, India a couple of years ago bought all that gold from the IMF. Well, supposedly, at least on paper they did. So as the Federal Reserve needs to push down the price of the dollar, they do so partially by increasing the value of gold. And so countries like Iran can trade their oil for that gold, so Iran gets that much wealthier. You might see a motive now for getting into Iran. Now, Zero Hedge themselves have talked about you can actually defeat Iran without ever going to any war by switching to the United States, switching to its own fuel reserves, dropping the price of fuel down so far Iran would go out of business. There's not without a shot fired. That's not why they're doing this. That is not why this is happening. So again, the more countries like Greece, the bonds due, come up to their deadlines, the more of the domino effect they're going to have, the sooner you can expect a major war. The sooner you can expect that to happen. So, a lot of these things are culminating now. We're getting closer and closer to this moment in which guys like Jim Rickards, what they've been warning about. Now, again, Jim Rickards also said, and this is really important, Jim Rickards said that all of these things are happening on a much faster scale than he had anticipated in his book, Currency Wars. So you can follow Jim Rickards on Twitter. Blah, blah, blah. Now, I'm going to talk about Twitter a little bit when I come back, because there's been some developments in the Twitter story. We're going to take another break real fast. When we come back, we're going to talk more about Greece a little bit. We're going to talk about some of the ramifications of what happens in a major default like that. We're going to talk about a few of, say, Ron Paul's comments about the United States will eventually default, and basically on their creditors, which is largely Japan and China, and what that means. So, coming up on the Mark David Show, some more really important news that you need to hear on KRFP 92.5 Moscow. Welcome back to the Mark David Show, where the truth is a conspiracy. Who doesn't love the long version of Star Wars Imperial March? Come on now. All right, what have we been talking about? We've been talking a lot about defaults. We've been talking about a lot about the domino effect, blah, 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 blah. Here's some interesting news. This is from CBS.com. And this might kind of, CBSnews.com, I'm sorry. And this might explain a little bit as to why a lot of the importance of what's happening in Greece is not mainstream. Okay, this is an example of how the mainstream media works, okay? This is CBSnews.com. Twitter's censorship plan rouses global fear. Okay, this is Twitter. Twitter, a tool of choice for dissidents and activists around the world, found itself a target of global outrage Friday after unveiling plans to allow country-specific censorship of tweets that might break local laws. Blah, 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 blah. Okay, well, so why is that such an important article? Okay, you might remember that Prince Al-Waleed of Saudi Arabia, who does Saudi Arabia's investments for them, Kingdom Investments, just bought a huge stake in Twitter. You might remember how many times Saudi Arabian citizens have tried to rise up and chop the heads off the Saudi royal family. They're connected, I guarantee you. You can stake the Mark David Show on that. They are connected. I mean, this is just stupid. This is just on a stupid level. That here you got the Prince of Saudi Arabia buys this, And now they're censoring it. Okay, this is what I mean by how the mainstream media operates. Okay, mainstream media operates in a manner to control reality, to control the truth of news. And they're doing this obviously on the story of the Greek default. I mean, yeah, it's bleeding in, but what they're covering and what's actually happening are two different things. And that's why you need to check out articles on places like Zero Hedge. Okay, I'm going to keep going down zerohedge.com headlines here. Okay, so this second headline from Zero Hedge today talks about the Greece and how basically Greece releases new proposal with even greater losses to creditors. And that's, again, the 70% that they're going to take a haircut on. Next headline, why an outsized LTRO will actually be bad for European banks. So, blah, blah, blah. Okay, 2012, the year of hyperactive central banks. And in bold, it says the only relevant pieces of financial information are contained in the Fed's H4.1, H3 statements. Okay, blah, blah, blah. And it says basically you need to follow the news of the ECB, the Fed, the Bank of England, Bank of Japan, so on and so forth. Okay. Counterfeit money, counterfeit policy, next post. America's largest minority-owned and operated investment bank shuts down. And next one, Art Cashin explains why several 100,000 jobs are about to vaporize. Okay, I'm going to stop there. And I'm just going to read you this paragraph. This is from zerohedge.com. 2 days ago, we learned that when MF Global goes bankrupt, billions in cash are just vaporize. Okay? Next, we have Art Cashin explain why it is that the U.S. economy is about to see several 100,000 jobs vaporize as well. So, real important article. I'm not going to get into the meat and potatoes because I want you to read it. Next article goes how Sears is plunging, so on and so forth. Markets react to reality. Da-da-da. Okay, will seasonal slump drive de-risking? No housing bottom, home prices, da-da-da. So anyway, Zero Hedge. Sounds like a lot of bad news, doesn't it? Well, you need to understand the reality of this news. And again, you can get a lot about how the world really truly works. You can Google or YouTube or whatever you want to use, whatever, and look up the history of the bond market. And you're going to see the name Rothschild all over it. That is not a conspiracy theory. This is a family of bankers who largely contributed very heavily to international bond sales. They're integral into the history. Okay, we're going to talk about some hedge fund news for a second. This is from Fin Alternatives. This was from January 27th. Partner at New Jersey hedge fund disappears with investor cash. Okay, yes, this is really happening. Okay, a Jersey City, New Jersey-based hedge fund firm has allegedly been bilked by one of its own. According to sources familiar with the Osiris Fund, partner Peter Zuck has fled with investors' money, and the fund is now defunct. Unlike most hedge funds, which have a minimum investment level of $1 million or more, the minimum investment for the Osiris Fund was just $150,000, making it accessible to smaller investors. So, we just talked about how John Corzine from MF Global, JP Morgan, after when MF Global went down, the last time there was a Greek default, the last time Greek bondholders had to take a haircut, they ran off with billions. And JP Morgan broke the law in the manner in which they held on to investors' money when the way the laws were written, the nature of the investment that MF Global held, those investors were supposed to get their money before the banks. But JP Morgan held the money anyway because they do whatever they want because they are the Federal Reserve. They pay the New York Police Department to beat down protesters for $4.6 million or whatever it was. They do whatever they want. That's the problem, people. That's the problem. That is absolutely the problem. They do whatever they want. Okay, so then here's a micro example of this New Jersey hedge fund. This guy, Peter Zuck, just takes the money and runs off. Now, I remember my grandma telling me of a local bank here in Deary in the Great Depression that happened. The guy in Deary just took the money and ran off. And everyone's like, wait a minute. Wait, that's my money that's in that bank, in the Bank of Deary. Nope, not anymore. It's in the hands of the banker now. And people, you're on your lunch hour. It's 12:29. You're drunk on your lunch hour if you think that this isn't going to continue to happen constantly. You're drunk on your lunch hour, and your boss should fire you for being drunk if you think this isn't going to keep happening. That's all I'm going to say about that. So here's this guy, New Jersey hedge fund guy, runs off with the money. Where are you going to hide, dude? I'm assuming you don't have a Facebook or a Twitter, although Twitter.com censors people now. So who knows? Maybe you're in a country where you can brag on Twitter and no one else in the other country can see you. I don't know. All I'm saying is this is going to continue to happen. Okay? Now, there's a lot going on in the UK right now. And here's an article from goldmoney.com. UK is in bad shape. Okay? The UK, and I've talked about this before on the Mark David Show, a lot of people have been talking about this. The UK has no economy. Now, this is from January 25th. It says, this is from goldmoney.com, UK economy shrinks in the fourth quarter. President Obama's State of the Union address, the Davos meeting, and confirmation of the United States, the UK's economy shrunk in the fourth quarter of 2011. And they're all in the headlines. And so why is the UK economy shrinking? Well, what is the UK economy? You tell me that. American Idol? Oh, wait, no. It was X Factor, I believe. Okay? They have the North Sea oil, which has been rapid decline. So, again, the UK economy, they're in big trouble over there. Things are going to happen there far faster. And you've seen the relationship between Sarkozy of France, Merkel of Germany, and David Cameron of the UK. David Cameron, I'm not even going to tell you essentially what he is to these other countries at this point. The UK has no power. They have no power. They're the police state that the United States is paranoid and quickly becoming. They already are. Because, I'm not going to really dive too hard into gun ownership and blah, 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 blah. But I want to turn to a very famous and prominent hedge fund investor by the name of Jim Rogers. I talk about Jim Rogers on this show all the time. And Jim Rogers is going to explain for us really briefly via YouTube why the UK economy is in the shape that it's in. This is Jim Rogers, hedge fund manager, former partner of George Soros.
I mean, it's pretty simple, Jamie. The North Sea oil is drying up. According to your government, you've been a net exporter. Now you're about to be a net importer again. That's a huge shift. And the financial system, which has also been a huge contributor to the UK's balance of trade, is also now finished. I mean, you're not going to make much money there again. Your banks, according to your government, are all in serious trouble. So the major sources of income for the UK are now disappearing, and that's going to lead to serious problems with your currency. It always has.
All right, so again, that was Jim Rogers saying that he's not advocating his own investment. He's simply saying North Sea oil is drying up, UK is in really bad shape, and they have no way out of this. So are we going to see the UK eventually in the shape of Greece? Yeah, you bet we are. You bet we are. And then the big one's coming, and that's Japan. And I've talked about this. I have it on my YouTube channel. I've talked about it on the Mark David Show many times. Japan's coming. We're going to be talking about Japan like we are Greece, only we're going to be talking way, way, way bigger deal. Okay, so we're going to go to some more music. We come back. We're going to keep talking our discussion about the situation in Greece, how it affects the world, blah, 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 blah. Again, this is the Mark David Show. Don't go anywhere. Let your food digest with some reality. This is a little Chopin to help your food go down into your... I'm not going to get all into... All right, welcome back to the Mark David Show. That was Chopin. I always call him Chopin. Okay? And people always jump me and say, it's Chopin. What are you? Did you know him? Did he tell you that to shut up? It's Chopin. It's spelled Chopin. His name is Chopin. This is America. Okay? It's Chopin. It's not Chopin. There's no A in there. Okay, pet peeve, sorry. All right, we're going to keep going on some serious financial news that's going on that you need to know to help your food digest. It's important that your food digest. Okay, this is from Bloomberg via MaxKaiser.com. Or is it MaxKaiser.com? Anyway, this is from Bloomberg. Foreclosures draw private equity as U.S. sells homes. Okay? And private equity firms are jumping into distressed housing as the U.S. government plans to market 200,000 foreclosed homes as rentals to speed up the economic recovery. Okay, so this is still going on. Foreclosure gate. Now, this is what Max Keiser, this is how he wrote the headline, MaxKaiser.com. I'll talk about him in a second. How he wrote that same headline. Vultures swoop in, ... The home buyers took all the risk. Private equity firms like Romney's Bain Capital get all the reward. Do you understand that? You see, the companies that are swooping in on these foreclosed homes, that's people like you, people who took out massive home loans because they're massive anyway. I mean, think about any loan you're borrowing $150,000, $200,000. That's like a big chunk of your entire earning potential, assuming you're going to have a job. Okay, people like you lose when the jobs aren't there, when the reality of the bond market steps in because companies like Goldman Sachs are selling securities here and then betting against those securities. When things like that happen, guys like Mitt Romney and companies like Bain Capital swoop in and steal it from you for pennies on the dollar, and that's how they make their money, baby. Pay me my money. That's right. I cannot believe that a guy like Newt Gingrich or Mitt Romney could even get on television in this day and age. Are we really that stupid? Seriously, someone please call me. 892-9200. Are we really that stupid? Is America really that stupid? Mitt Romney is a vulture capitalist, man. And Newt Gingrich, oh my God. Okay, I'm not even going to play this game anymore. I'm not even going to play this game of are these people, are they Republican? Is a Republican a Democrat issue? Think of the credentials of these people. At least you could say this about Barack Obama. We can't say that he did and said things that were like so in line with Nazi Germany when he was elected, I mean. Like Newt Gingrich, everything out of his mouth is like right out of a Hitler playbook, and that's not even being dramatic, and I'm known to be dramatic. Seriously. This guy's just straight up rotten. How could we possibly even think for 1 second that why is this guy even on television? I could rant about this all day. I'm not going to because I know you don't want me to. Mitt Romney, I mean, seriously, what needs to happen before people realize what this guy's all about? It's just amazing. Okay, I'm going to get back into some news. This is from today. No, I'm sorry. This is from 2 days ago. From Forbes.com. This is, why are the Chinese buying record quantities of gold? Well, we talked about this a few minutes ago, not too long ago, about how the Federal Reserve wants to devalue the dollar, and they do so partly by raising the price of gold and printing money, which itself raises the price of gold. You saw gold skyrocket recently, shot back up. That was just from rumors that there's going to be QE3. Just from rumors. So why wouldn't China buy gold? Okay? So Forbes.com talks about China doesn't actually declare the amount of gold they buy. So there's no telling how much they have. But Hong Kong has a Census and Statistics Department, and they report that what China imports, so that's what they're using. And anyway, China is getting a record amount of gold. Okay, I told you earlier, before one of our breaks, that Jim Rickards talked about gold and what he said about gold. So I'm going to get to that. Jim Rickards, the author of Currency Wars, you gotta read Jim Rickards. If you want your food to digest, you gotta read Jim Rickards. Okay, Jim Rickards says a lot of people are saying that these banks, which central banks are reportedly buying a record amount of gold. China is reportedly buying a record amount of gold. Iran is now trading oil and gold. They've been kicked off the dollar standard once and for all. They're kicked off the euro standard even. Once and for all, they're using gold. And of course, they already had their own currency exchange, okay? We know the Federal Reserve is devaluing the currency by raising gold. Okay, what does Jim Rickards say? He's saying, a lot of people are saying you can't go to a global currency. China wants to be the world reserve currency in about 4 or 5 years from now. 2016, 2017, 2018, whatever. But so they have an incentive to get all this gold. And a lot of people are saying that's ridiculous. You can't float a world currency off of gold. And Jim Rickards is famous for saying, it's not a matter how much gold there is in the world. It's a question of what price. What price? They're going to devalue gold, or they're going to revalue, They're going to revalue gold. And he's estimating somewhere between $5,000 and $20,000 per ounce. So it's not a matter of having gold to make money. It's a matter of having gold, whatever. I'm not even telling you to invest in gold. I don't care what you invest in. You should probably invest in food. For real. For reals. Food, baby. Storing food, whatever. This is not paranoia radio. So don't take any of this as like paranoia, whatever. But invest in whatever your family needs. What does your family need? What's more valuable than your money? Yes, food is more valuable than your money, just so you know that. Point I'm trying to make is, this is a global show that talks about global economic issues and so forth. We're talking about gold here. When countries like China are accumulating record amounts of gold, they've stated that they want to be the world reserve currency. You can bet gold is going to play a big part in that. By the way, China is sitting on a lot of our bonds. Those bonds get dumped. They got the gold and the new currency of gold-backed yuan. I'm not saying that's going to happen. I'm saying they'd like that to happen. That's what I'm saying. We know that George Soros has come out and said he knows exactly what's going to happen to the dollar. Now think about, okay, let's talk about this logically. Let's have a logical discussion about this. If you know exactly what's going to happen to the dollar, then there's only one thing that you know. The dollar is going to die. That's the only thing that could possibly be. If George Soros truly does know exactly what's going to happen to the dollar, and he always seems to know because he's in that little inner circle of people that go, I don't care how many people die from this decision. He's part of those, that's exactly how he talks, by the way. He like spits and drools as he speaks. And I know there's people out there listening right now who spit and drool as they speak. I'm sorry that I have to single you out for spitting and drooling, but that's what George Soros does. If he knows what's going to happen to the dollar, there's only one thing that could happen to the dollar, and that's death to the dollar. So, how's the dollar going to die? Okay, there's two things you're going to have to prepare for before we go to break. Get this in your head. When we come back, we're going to keep talking about it. Number one, you're going to turn on the television pretty soon, and you're going to hear that the dollar is revalued. Could be up to 30% at one time. And you're going to say to yourself, okay, so what does that mean? Okay, things are going to get a little more expensive. And then you're going to realize how poor you really are when that happens. Next thing you're going to do is you're going to see these spikes in gold that just skyrocket up. But they're not spikes in gold. They're revaluing gold. When you see gold skyrocketing, what you're seeing is people betting on the revalue of gold. Gold gets revalued every time it changes hands. And when it goes into the hands of really, really big investors, it gets revalued upwards a lot. China is the biggest investor on the world right now because they're the biggest creditor nation in the world. And they're holding the debt of the biggest debtor nation in the history of the world. Serious business, people. And in the middle of it are banks that are intertwined in a domino effect. And a country like Greece is giving more people a haircut. This is getting insane. We're going to take a break before I have a heart attack. This is White Lies to Lose My Life. Welcome back to the Mark David Show, where the truth is a conspiracy. That was To Lose My Life by White Lies. It's a British band. That's such a beautiful song, in my opinion. IMO. It's a beautiful song because it's like everybody's little dream, right? That you meet someone and you grow old together and you don't go through the heartache. You don't go through the heartbreak of living with someone your whole life, investing your entire life and them dying of whatever, cancer, whatever. You just fall down dead at the same time. Now, it doesn't happen very often, does it? But you see there, I saw this picture recently of these two skeletons. Ancient skeletons, whatever. Probably some volcano situation. And they were like holding on to each other. It's a beautiful thing. It's beautiful. It's beautiful. Don't argue with me. I'm the one with the microphone. All right, so welcome back to the Mark David Show. We have been talking about just a headache, heart attack amount of financial news. Look, it's nothing to scare people. It's just, here's what I like to do. I like to just beat it in your head, metaphorically. No, I'm nonviolent, but metaphorically beat it in your head that this is real. Now, speaking of being nonviolent, let's talk about mixed martial arts because that's awesome violence. All right. Channeled violence is important. It's Coach Greg Jackson, who's a real douchebag, but as he says, though, you take that anger and martial arts gives it a place to channel it. It's not bad for a douchebag, okay? I think douchebag is actually an FCC-approved phrase. I'm pretty sure. If not, I'm sure I'm going to hear about that. Okay, so what's going on? Real quickly, I want to briefly transition to MMA. Why do we talk about MMA on the Mark David Show? Stop asking stupid questions. Okay, I'm going to answer it anyway. We talk about MMA because MMA teaches us two fundamental things in life that we need to know right now in the evolution of industrialized man transitioning into an evolution of non-wasteful man. Did you get all that? Write that down. Number one thing MMA teaches us. Sometimes you got to take a punch to grab an arm. Okay? That's the number one thing MMA teaches you. You got to take and that's essentially what the Occupy movement has learned. Okay? I'm going to talk about the Occupy Oakland here in a second. Oh, yeah, you bet we are. Saving some of the best for last. Okay? And that is, you take your hit. This generation, Occupy generation, is getting beat down. Like, you worthless, stupid, ugly kids. That's what they're being told by their grandparents who tried to do this and failed. Because the same powers that be are still in powers that be. Okay? So, what is the second thing MMA teaches you? Well, it teaches you to be well-rounded. It teaches you to be well-rounded, and the more well-rounded you are, the more fearless you are. Okay, so what's happening in MMA? Oh, just a little fight with Nick Diaz, and any fight with Nick Diaz is worth stopping the press and saying, what's up? Don't be scared, homie. Nick Diaz, of course, one of the greatest fighters of all time. You know, they say he's like the greatest, boxer. But a great boxing coach explains he's not a boxer. He's just really good with his hands because he doesn't do his footwork. Okay, I'm not going to get all off on MMA, on a tangent on MMA. But it's just, Nick Diaz is a great fight. Okay, I'm going to go over mixedmartialarts.com headlines real fast. Mike Tyson, MMA would be interesting. Please, Mike Tyson, don't try to do it. Mike Tyson, don't do it, Mike Tyson. And don't track me down, beat me up, and bite my ear off for saying this, Mike Tyson. Don't get into the octagon. These people will beat you. Don't do it. Okay, Little Nog wants to KO Gustafsson in Sweden. Not going to happen, Little Nog. You're going to end up like your brother with the broken arm. Overeem charged with 1 count of misdemeanor battery. Overeem's a psycho who takes too many steroids, but he's got some brutal knees. You got to give him that. You know, I'm not like I'm going to get blasted for this by anyone, by my global listeners. I'm not against a type of wrestling, say, what am I trying to say? A promotion who allows steroids. I don't think the UFC should. But let a bunch of muscled up people beating on each other. I'll watch it. I don't care. Okay. Blah, 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 blah. So anyway, that's the most important things going on in MMA. We got some great fights coming up. Last weekend's fight, Chael Sonnen, not so exciting. That was actually, I think it's great, the Fox card. Doing business with Fox, you deserve to fail, Dana White in UFC. You're a failure. You don't do business with Fox. You should know that. Rupert Murdoch is blaming digital media saying that they're cannibalizing his newspapers, cannibalizing his sorry, pathetic excuse for a news broadcast program with Bill O'Reilly and Sean Hannity. Please, people, we got to evolve past this nonsense. These idiots, and they are idiots. They're total idiots. Okay, they're leading these baby boomer idiots astray. Okay, I'm gonna trash the baby boomers for a second. I do this all the time. You guys are holding up the show, baby boomers, because you want your Social Security. You want your stuff. I paid and thought I should get it. Good. You want it? Go after the people who stole it. Don't steal it from the young generation. Baby boomers, I'm not afraid of you. Call me, 892-9200. I'll talk to any of you. You got 5 minutes of my time. That's all I'm going to give you, baby boomers. Go after Congress. Go after the people who stole it. Okay, we're going to go to shtfplan.com. I'll let you blank hitsthefanplan.com. We're going to go 2 articles right here. I don't hate you, baby boomers. I love you. I'm just not going to wipe your butts in a couple years, just so you know that. I know that's what you're thinking. You're going to think, okay, these Occupy kids, they're going to need jobs, and we're going to give them jobs wiping our butts. No. It's not going to happen. And this is the great thing of all, baby boomers. This is great. Baby boomers, you baby boomers, you've been shoving your moms and dads into retirement homes where they're getting Auschwitz treatment. Oh, yeah, they're nice. They're costing you thousands of dollars a month that you're paying for, selling off their assets they worked their entire lives for, including possibly from the Great Depression. But you're shoving your parents into these places. You ain't going to see nothing like that, baby boomers. FYI, you're going to need this occupied generation to take care of you. Why should they take care of you? You're holding up the show. I don't like Romney, but I think Gingrich once in a while says things that aren't quite fascist. So I'm going to vote for him. No. You can I'm not saying Ron Paul. Hire a guy like Ron Paul to chop this up for you, or it's going to fall apart on its own, baby boomers. And no, Occupy Wall Street generation is not going to wipe your butts. Before I get to these 2 articles, because we only got a few minutes left, I want to talk about Occupy Oakland for a second. They have learned from the first time they did this, okay? And the only reason it's still happening in Oakland and not over in New York and so forth is because it's warmer in Oakland. But if you look at the YouTube videos of Occupy Oakland, you'll see that they're actually advancing their position. They have shields that, cops are shooting their tear gas and stuff at them. The protesters have shields, and they're actually advancing their position, taking over streets. This stuff's going to be everywhere. Okay, I'm going to go to these 2 articles before I sign off. One is, massive U.S. military buildup reported around Iran. Up to 100,000 troops ready by March. Yep. And again, it doesn't have anything to do with anything other than they need this war to fund the derivative that they're printing across Europe and the United States. Second one, New Jersey legislators move to ban ammunition. That's right. This is all what it's coming to. So, what do we know? What's going on? Well, I don't know about you, but I'm not seeing a whole lot of people becoming unhinged and going off. I mean, you have your radical shooters, and those people, I understand, they should not have access to guns, radical shooters and so forth. But people for a long time have been saying the UN's not going to come door to door and take your gun. They're going to freeze up the ammunition. People have been saying that for a long time. And now these